Hello everyone and welcome to a new Meet the CloudStack Community video. Today we're here with Rohit Yadav. Rohit is a PMC member of the CloudStack project and he's a longtime contributor to CloudStack. Hi Rohit, can you share a few words about yourself?
Hi Vit, thanks for having me on this call. Hi everyone, my name is Rohit Yadav. I'm in Gurgaon, India. I'm a committer and PMC member of the Apache CloudStack project for almost a decade now. At work, I oversee software engineering function at ShapeBlue as the principal software engineer.
Rohit, can you share with us a little bit more about how did you started your CloudStack journey?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Yvette. So I think it's interesting. My journey to CloudStack started from open source, transitioned to IS and virtualization, and eventually I found CloudStack and fell in love with that. I was a university student back in 2009, where I stumbled upon VLC and other open source projects. I got inspired by a documentary called Revolution Open Source or Revolution OS, and I really got inspired by the figures in that sort of documentary, like RMS, Linus Torvalds, like the idea of freedom that open source kind of brings in, ability to run, copy, distribute, and change source code. Eventually, I got into Google Summer of Code, worked for VideoLAN as a Google Summer of Code student. And then I luckily got to work as a volunteer summer student under Dr. Ben Siegel. So Dr. Ben Siegel is the mentor of Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the person who kind of invented World Wide Web, wrote the first web server. The really inspiring kind of time for me. And at CERN in Geneva, I got hands-on experience in virtualization, Python, BOINC, and I eventually ended up writing a small IS-like project called VM Controller. How do you control virtual machines? That kind of already germinated the interest in this kind of space, the IS space, cloud, infrastructure as a service. And I really like open source in general. Let me share a funny story with you very briefly, which is I was missing a lot of assignments in my university. My professor called me and said, why are you not submitting this on time? And I said, I'm into open source and, I'm not finding enough time and I forgot and I was making all sorts of excuses. And he gave me a challenge, go and jump into any open source operating system project and fix a security bug, because the professor was for a information security class. So I did what normally anyone comfortable with open source communities would do. I asked around a lot of people on mailing list, and somehow in one of the projects called Haiku OS, they suggested me to go and fix some file system related issues in chmod, which I did, and the professor was impressed, and he never bothered me again to write those specific assignments. I could miss them if I can demonstrate some other things that I'm doing in that information security space. Transitioned back from university, I got placed into Citrix, got my first job there. That's where I got to learn about cloud.com, which got transitioned, was in the process of being donated to the ASF. I was in Hyderabad at the time, and I got to work with the original architects of CloudStack, Alex Wang and Chiradeep. So they kind of left a lot of impressions in me. What's the sort of essence of the project and how the software kind of works. I learned a lot in that first year. And I think eventually I switched to ShapeBlue, and ever since, I think I was the first engineering hire at ShapeBlue, and I think the rest is history.
What is Rohit doing in his free time when you're not developing code for CloudStack?
That's an interesting and a difficult question to answer. So these days, a lot of household chores, tending to my cats, but yeah, I think the project kind of keeps me excited even after almost a decade now. And in my free time, I think about CloudStack, what different features we can do, what are the improvements we can do, what sorts of initiatives we can do in CloudStack. If you personally ask me, my attitude is that everyone in the community is a rock star, right? It's just that we are not popular. People haven't heard about us, but nonetheless, we are rock stars in the community. We are building something valuable for the world to use. And I think I take a lot of pride and happiness in that. I get to work with so many intelligent people in the list, in the community, at work, and I'm thoroughly excited about CloudStack, and I can't wait to see what the future will bring to the community and to the project.
CloudStack is an open source technology, and according to a long-time developer like you, Rohit, what are the advantages of open source versus proprietary technologies?
I think there are certainly many advantages and disadvantages with either or both, right? That's kind of a trade-off if you ask me as an engineer. Uh, I'm kind of biased with CloudStack because I've been working on it for nearly a decade. So I'll certainly say CloudStack is better, irrespective of whether the thing it is being compared to is a proprietary software or not. In general, all the open source software kind of gives you certain freedoms, right? Freedom to run, copy, distribute, and change. They got initially started as a philosophy, that propagated from RMS, but it has been adopted in some way or form by most of the open source communities or open source licenses. So I think that's been the major advantage. Now, specific to CloudStack, we have to look at what type of software CloudStack is, right? CloudStack is an infrastructure software, much like your roads and bridges. That basically means you don't want to pay toll tax every time you're going to use your infrastructure. So you are not using CloudStack for the sake of CloudStack, right? You use CloudStack to run your workloads that are managed by CloudStack. And I think that's basically the sort of major advantage. It is open source. You are free, you are free to modify, collaborate, change, and distribute. And there's no vendor lock-in as per se, right? Like maybe if you go to vendor number X or Y or Z, they will charge you some money, but you're pretty much locked and at the mercy of that specific vendor. So in future, let's say, what are the risks associated with that kind of a relationship? You're totally dependent on that vendor. So if there is a security issue, you want a feature, you want something resolved, you're always relying on one party. In contrast with let's say two open source communities, you can always have multiple people who can learn that technology. You yourself can learn and get your hands-on experience in improving that.
Behind every open source project, usually there is a community which is supporting the project, which is contributing code to the project. And that's the same actually with the CloudStack community. And every community of open source project has a specific hierarchy and specific organizations. Can you tell me more about what is the role of PMC members in CloudStack project?
Yes, absolutely. So the PMC, or the Project Management Committee, is a governance body under the ASF, the Apache Software Foundation. And it's not specific to just Apache CloudStack, but they are for all the top level projects, including Apache CloudStack. And the PMC are empowered by the ASF with the responsibility and the governance of that project, right? What I mean by that is we have to adhere to the Apache way of operating under the principles of transparency, consensus, and meritocracy. And we the members of the PMC are tasked with a lot of administrative tasks, in like inviting new committers and other PMC members, oversee the overall project health, right, including releases, any kind of decision making which is held by consensus, discussion, and voting. And also PMC kind of manages, follows, and enforces the project bylaws. So that's essentially the role of PMC in the Apache CloudStack project.
Rohit, you are very much engaged in the development of CloudStack, and you are one of the driving forces behind the new versions of CloudStack. Can you share a few details about what should users expect from the upcoming version 4.16, when it will be released, and what are the major improvements which will be implemented?
Yes, of course. So I think the next major release is going to be 4.16, which is targeted for Q3/Q4 this year. Now, because all the features and development, it's a kind of dialogue between the community and contributor, right? So it's hard to say which features will get into a release or not. In general, the release manager will declare a freeze date, a timeline for when are we cutting the first release candidate, or RC. And whatever kind of gets reviewed, tested, and merged in the main branch of the CloudStack repository will basically be part of that release. On top of our head, there are many features, right? I think recently Vido shared that CloudStack is quite stable, and I agree with him. The core CloudStack design and architecture hasn't changed in last 7 or 8 years, and that kind of shows the original design on which the entire project kind of in terms of implementation and design sits on is so robust that we didn't actually have to change that. So a lot of these features are plug-in and extension of that core design and architecture, the core CloudStack kernel, if I may use that term. And there are many features that are upcoming. So kind of give you a list of them. A full list of them will take a lot of time, but anyone can actually go to the project, go to the GitHub milestone and see which features, pull requests, and issues are targeted for which version or milestone. But just to name a couple of them, which I think I find them interesting, are the support for PowerFlex, which was previously called Scale.io storage with KVM. We got a lot of improvements coming in the CloudStack Kubernetes service with support for autoscaler. Many improvements in VMware, especially around data store support, VM ingestion. And then we are doing a lot of support for new distributions such as OpenSUSE or Rocky Linux, which we think a lot of people in community also think will replace CentOS 8. Then we got other features, interesting features that are really specific to some subset of the total feature set. For example, storage agnostic KVM-HA. We're also looking into exploring support for Hyper-V 2019. And there are massive changes that may come soon in the system and templates, and exploring with a VR agent, sort of to make it turnkey. This may be a significant change because many times we claim that CloudStack is turnkey, but this will just put a period to that statement, which is now maybe with that feature, people will be able to even more comfortably and with ease, they'll be able to upgrade CloudStack installations.
Something which made an impression is that you said that CloudStack is a vendor agnostic solution. And I suppose that many companies are choosing it exactly because of this, because they can choose their own hypervisor and they can decide how to use their own hardware and what type of hardware to use. But if we talk for specific use cases, for which companies CloudStack is making the biggest sense?
I think so I think there are 2 points. One is what type of users are using it, where it is finding use cases, and who are actually using it. And I think that can open up a can of worms of comparing CloudStack versus others and why people choose CloudStack and what are their sort of requirements. So I think fundamentally, if you look at the history of CloudStack, it has always been user driven. So that basically means there has been attempts by different vendors who have come in to implement support for their products and solutions, whether they are specific to networking or storage or hypervisor. And largely, we have seen that CloudStack has organically come out and supported only set of features that are used in real by production users. Companies such as service providers, telcos, and enterprises, they all tend to use CloudStack. If I were to just give you a scale of these deployments, they are used by Fortune 5 companies, Fortune 50 companies, and 500 companies. The largest deployment that is known, at least to me, was by a gaming company which had 40,000 hosts. And in terms of scalability, I think we had some scalability feasibility study done a couple of years ago, but I think that should still hold, which was something like 4 management servers can manage 30,000 hosts. And in real life, we know there are many users. Some of them are actually our customers, friends in the community. They have deployments in the scale of 5 to 10,000 hosts per zone. So that kind of scale is supported by CloudStack.
When companies are using proprietary solutions, usually behind them there is a vendor who has a specific targets and a specific roadmap, which is followed constantly throughout the years. But when companies are using open source technologies, usually they also have the word and they can affect the direction in which the project is going. How open is the CloudStack community for new ideas, for features, and for feature requests?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question, Yvette. I think CloudStack, as I said, the community works on the principles of Apache that we call the Apache way. That means, everything is done in open, in a transparent way, consensus driven with based on, meritocracy. So all those things are there. Anyone can download the software packages, play with that, send a pull request. They're all welcome to do that. There are mailing lists where you can start by proposing your idea. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What can you do for CloudStack? And there are many contributors who will always help you out in guiding you. And we have some great examples recently. So I can talk about an initiative by ENA on introducing support for Tungsten Fabric, which is a NFV sort of solution or SDN solution. And that's one example of a company or an organization trying to bring in, do something new and interesting. And they are always welcome to kind of do that. And we, as a project, have done, great collaboration across these organizations. Nuage is another example that comes to my mind. And there are all the vendors who have come to the community have always found support in the community.
What would be your recommendation so that we can all grow the community and make CloudStack more popular as a technology?
I think spread the word and make it easy for people to join the join the community, participate and collaborate and contribute to CloudStack. And from a PMC point of view or community point of view, we have been doing and taking a lot of initiatives in that direction. I can maybe illustrate a few. So I think back in 2012, when I joined, I faced a lot of issues in, how do I learn CloudStack and how do I do X, Y, Z? How do I work on a feature as a developer? And as a user, I wanted to, just learn and play with the tool. And we recently open sourced our internal onboarding program, which is HackerBook. It's a self-styled, do-it-yourself, self-learning sort of courseware where you can sort of, let's say, if you have no experience in how do I, let's say, build CloudStack, test CloudStack, run, implement a feature. So we are working on documentation. The other thing we are working on is outreach programs. So Google Summer of Code is one example where we are trying to leverage, internship-like programs like Google Summer of Code, where we can bring in, fresh talent, new talents, make them excited, and they sort of get to learn something about CloudStack as well. And I think this year we got 4 students who are working under the ASF GSOC sort of projects. And I think these are the ways where we will find, new people. It goes without saying marketing, because I'm still surprised that people haven't heard of CloudStack, because that has been one of the pain points, right? Which is people have said it's the best kept secret, but I think because of, let's say, a lack of ammo like the other organization or other projects have, we always have one on technical and engineering comparisons and skill. So on these points, we have always won. And I think with your initiative, the kind of work you are bringing in the community, these kind of calls will definitely help solve that problem longer term.
Thank you very much for these recommendations. I personally believe that the technology is not just a hype, but technology is something which needs to be future-proofed and which needs to be here for the next decade so that companies can use something which is reliable and stable. Thank you very much, Rohit. So if we need to summarize, CloudStack is something which is really user-friendly with a welcoming community, easy to use, easy to manage and implement, and stable and reliable.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said better than that.
Thank you very much, Rohit. So thank you for everybody for watching this video. If you have any questions to Rohit, just leave them below in the comments and we will try to get the answers from him. And one last question, Rohit. Who else would you nominate for our next videos, Meet the CloudStack Community?
Oh, wow. There's so many people in the community. It's hard to pick a name. But I think there has been a thread ongoing, and there are many people, recommended there. And we should just ask the community, let's do that in the Apache way. Let's ask the community, build consensus, and see, what people demand.
True, completely true. So leave in the comment also who else you would like to see in the Meet the CloudStack Community series. And if you want to stay notified for the next videos, just subscribe for our channel. Thank you very much for watching us, and see you later.